And hello, everybody. I'm Rick Dancer. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. I'm pretty excited about this show because it's a hot topic right now. We got presidential candidates talking about unity. I'm not sure how serious any of these folks are. I've been kind of down on the whole unity thing because I think it's kind of sometimes like tolerance. I find people are tolerant as long as you agree with them. So the people we're going to talk to are with a group called Braver Angels, and you'll understand why once you meet them. It's basically, and they'll explain it and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's to get us back together on two different sides of issues, but to have discussion and walk away and be friends. We don't have to agree, but we do need to get along and work together as a community. And I'm seeing places like a show we're having on soon on our records is in Cottage Grove, where people are fighting and upset with each other. This has been going on for so long, and we keep getting farther and farther apart. And the whole idea behind this group is to bring us together, find some common ground if there is some, and at least walk away and have. My dad used to work for the Oregon Education Association. He was a union negotiator, and he'd walk into those meetings with school board members, and he'd be tough and they'd be tough, and they'd argue and discuss and fight, and then they'd go have dinner together afterwards. You don't see that happening today. And Braver Angels' idea, I think, is to get that kind of thing back together. So we'll get right to them right after we get our sponsors. Chris Dennell, Dr. Michael Bratland loves this conversation, loves civil liberties, believes very much wholeheartedly that we should all be talking and not doing what we are doing right now. Albert Taylor, Endless Possibilities. They work with people in our communities, Eugene and Springfield, with different abilities. Used to be called disabilities, but they're not disabilities. They're just different abilities. They're always looking for people to work with their staff, with their friends, with the people that they work with. If you're interested, just go to Albert Taylor and go /jobs. Here in Montana, New America Funding, Greg Hinkle, former Oregonian, former Washingtonian. He's a funding mortgage funder. And the guy knows everything about how you move from Oregon to Washington to Montana and all the new things that are out there, the new programs. Great sponsor. We love having him. Rains, Heating, and Air Conditioning out of Creswell, Oregon. Now is the time before winter hits to get on a program where they'll come out and check everything to make sure it's going to work. Because if yours is like mine, your heat pump or your heating system, it always goes out when it gets really cold or really hot. Montana Oral Surgeons and Dental Implant Center here in Montana. They're in Butte. They're in Bozeman. They're in Great Falls, and they're in Helena. And wonderful people. If you're looking for an oral surgeon, you never know when you're going to need one. A lot of dentist offices don't do that anymore. From pulling teeth, or I think it's called extracting teeth because that sounds better. Pulling teeth is when I was a kid. Now they extract them, but they actually do put you out, which I wish that would have been an option when I was like 13 and they're cranking away on my teeth and I can hear them coming out of the bottom of my jaw. I think I'd rather be knocked out for that. And also Matt McCarl, New Leaf Hyperbarics and Wellness Center. Hyperbarics treatment, if you haven't done it yet, it's awesome. Has great results for people, especially traffic accidents, things like that. Matt can tell you all about that. They also do massage. They do light therapy. They do tons of stuff. Anything new that comes out, Matt's kind of aware of it and knows what's going on. And he also believes very wholeheartedly in that we should be having all kinds of conversations. And today, I think you guys are going to really learn a lot from this. I think I will too, because it's just really hard to have conversations with people who disagree with you right now. So joining me is Mary Miller and Grant Johnson, both Braver Angels. As an organization, and since they are doing this topic, they are also considered, I would say, Braver Angels. You have to be pretty brave to do this. Mary, let's start with you and kind of tell people what you were telling me earlier, how Braver Angels came about and kind of what the goal is here.
Yes. Thanks, Rick. Thanks for doing this. Braver Angels started back, I think it was 2017. So it's a relatively new national nonprofit. And it started when one of our three founders was concerned about the extreme polarization in his town immediately following the election where Trump was elected. And so this is a small town in Ohio, and he felt like people needed to get along again. And so with a colleague, he brought together 8 Clinton voters, people who had voted for Hillary Clinton, and 8 Trump voters for a whole weekend in the same room. And they came in hardly looking at each other, barely able to make eye contact. By the end of the weekend, none of them had changed their views, and they went out as friends. And that is basically how Brave Angels got started. And it spread across the country. Alliances meaning chapters, were being formed all over the country. We have a requirement that the leaders we must have leaders, one of whom is conservative or red, as we call them, and one is who is blue or liberal or progressive, whatever name you want to give it. That's a requirement on all leadership positions. So our alliance we have 3 co-chairs, but Grant is our red co-chair. Luke, who is not here today, is our blue co-chair. And we have an extra one today. I'm the purple co-chair, and it's got nothing to do with the color of the clothes that I'm wearing. So this spread around the country, and alliances started popping up all over the country with people getting together, bringing together conservatives and progressives. And then the pandemic hit, and everything stopped. And very, very quickly, Braver Angels managed to go online. And we have been online ever since. We're both online and in-person gatherings, so to speak. So that's basically enough to get you started, is it, Rick?
So how does this work in Eugene Springfield? So is that the chapter or the alliance is Eugene Springfield? And how many people do you have participating at this point?
We have about 200 people on our local mailing list.
Okay.
We have an average of 30 people showing up for any event that we have. And maybe we have a second event every month, and that's an informal event at a local hold on, let me just turn this off. At a local pub. We have 2 events. One is the local event at a local pub where people can just come informally. Maybe we have about 12 people show up at that one. That's monthly, second Tuesday of every month, Oakshire Pub. And the other event is usually a more formal event, either a workshop or a political dialogue that we ask people to register for. And it's free. Everything in Braver Angels is free. And it's a grassroots operation with all but a handful of staff are volunteers. So Grant and I and Luke are all volunteers.
So Grant, now I know you ran for Eugene School Board, well, it depends on what you measure as success. When I lost the race for Secretary of State, people said, well, you failed. And I go, no, actually I won because I didn't. So how did you get involved in this?
Well, my view, Rick, is just like with you. I didn't lose the race. I gained a whole lot of open doors, to include Braver Angels. And I just happened to see a flyer for Braver Angels one day when I was at the headquarters office. And I'm thinking, in the area that I'm living here right now, what a breath of fresh air that would be, to be able to get in with a group of people who possibly see things from different viewpoints, but could have a conversation that's respectful, and that people leave knowing each other a little bit better and can listen better. And that's what Braver Angels has been for me from the beginning. It's been quite a stretch, actually, to be able to learn some new thought patterns, and being able to open up and walk into a room where I know that there's going to be a good number of people that possibly don't agree with my views.
How do you keep it from becoming an argument? I mean, for either one of you, how does it? I was president of the City Club of Eugene for 3 years, And they brought me in because I was a more conservative guy and they wanted to broaden the horizon of the club. And it was tough. It was really tough. And people left because they didn't want to be in a club that Rick Dancer was a part of. And you'd have conversations, but I would never feel safe there really expressing my opinion. And maybe that's the question I'm trying to ask. How do people feel safe in Braver Angels in that situation to really talk about what they really believe?
Mary, why don't you go ahead?
I was going to ask you to, Grant. So just to clarify, when Grant said he saw a flyer at headquarters, that was at the local Republican headquarters. And then he called me and we got together and we moved forward from there. How do you do it? It's a challenge and it's a stretch, and that's for us. And, I come out of a mediator background. That's my profession. And also because a mediator has had mediator training. So it's to use the skills you've already been trained in. It's not easy when you're applying it to your own situation. And when someone says something that really gets under your skin, so you have to very consciously pull out those skills. Now, we are bringing people together that don't all have those skills.
Right.
And, we can talk more about this. We live in Eugene is more a blue area. Springfield is maybe more a red area. Maybe there's a lot of both here. You'd be surprised how many people in this area actually lean, one way or the other. And even within that, there is a continuum. So even within people who are conservative, there's a continuum as to, how conservative you are. And there's a continuum amongst blues as to how progressive, or if you want that word, you are. So let me stop there and let Grant add something. Or
well, Rick, being that this is a national organization, of course, with the website being braverangels.org, anyone can go out there and look at all of the material and the opportunities for people to be able to join in and observe and so forth. And it's always an emphasis on what the structure and the mannerism is that we bring when we come into a room together. It is never just a room full of people just coming in and throwing out things at each other to see who might win. Right. This is all structured, and it's emphasized continuously about what we're striving to do is to have an open conversation where that you don't have to go to extremes to get your point across. And listening skills is another big thing, because when you're talking, you're not listening. Right. And even us, the small group that we have that are kind of like the steering committee, I guess we would be called, Mary, is we're practicing just on our own. We have our own get-togethers where we're being very mindful of the stressors that we live in today, and we're actually opening up the door to these type of conversations, and then opening other doors for those type of questions about what you've just said. So this is something, it's an ongoing work. It's not something that you just step in and you just get it. It's just very enjoyable though to come out on the other end, and people get emotional, but yet we know we've taken some great strides in reinforcement. I wouldn't say enforcement, but to see that when we get to the end of a session and we go back around and say, well, how did we do? To say, we really did really well in this area, and we've still got some work to do in others. And it's just an ongoing work.
So why is this so important in this day and age to you two? What do you think? To give up the time that you're giving up and putting it into this, why do it?
For me, I don't feel I have a choice. About 3 years, I've been involved with Brave Angels for about 3 years on both a national level and trying to get this alliance off the ground. And I just felt like I had a responsibility, given that I come out of that background, to use whatever skills that I do have to try to bring people who think very differently about each other and are moving towards hating each other. We've got to stop this. We've got to realize that we can work together with very, very differing views and still like each other as people. Grant and I have very different views, and we like each other. We've been in each other's homes. We've been to meals at each other's houses, and we have a group, a steering committee for our alliance that meets twice a month in my living room to plan events and that is, again, 3 conservatives, 3 progressives, and 3 people who call themselves purple.
So is it because if we don't, as a people, and let's just stick with even Eugene and Springfield, if we don't get back to some kind of dialogue and, like you said, maybe disagreeing, but it used to be, I remember back in the day, like this is 15 years ago. It's not like that now, because I'm doing a podcast after you guys that's going to air this week on Cottage Grove recalling some city councilors. Used to be in Cottage Grove, you had hippies and you had loggers, to just to label everyone. We might as well. That's what everybody else does. But there was a huge contingency of these 2 people. And they didn't exactly agree on stuff. But when it came to the town, in the end, they did what was right for the town. Now that's gone. And I think that's post-COVID. That's post all the other bullshit that's gone on in our world. And I was sad to hear this. I'm doing this story because I think it's really great when people stand up and do what they believe. And there's a backstory to that. But my point being, they used to do that. And now they weren't even doing that. To get people back to a place where, how do you have a community? I think sometimes for me, I'll just be really honest, when I was in Eugene, it felt like I had to bite my tongue all the time and I couldn't say what I really felt. And once I did, I paid the price. I lost business. I lost people. I became a MAGA, a right-wing Trumper, any other label, homophobe, racist, anything. That became the label that I now have in Eugene and Springfield, because I started speaking out about what I really believed after keeping my mouth shut to keep my job when I was on television. I couldn't say any of that. And I think there's a lot of people in Eugene, Springfield who feel that way, especially in the more red camp. But people are standing up and saying more and then getting canceled on that. How do you get people brave enough to be able to be brave angels, to stand up and when there really is a contingent of people who will completely discount you for saying what you really believe?
Well, over the last 2 years that this particular chapter has been in existence, I would say that a good part of the number of people that are on our mailing list and those that we've come in contact with has all been rooted in personal relationship and just stepping out and talking to people. And we've talked about that lately. I've stepped out here recently, and I carry around a little flyer that Luke, who is my counterpart, has created a really good job of these little flyers with all the information on them. And I'm just striking up conversation. And I think that back to your question about what drives this and what is it that's most important here, is that if a man like myself in the age period that I'm in, or I guess we should say that we're in right now, if I'm not willing to step out and extend my hand to people, no matter what they look like in Eugene or what I think their concepts are right now, then I really don't have really any ability to do anything here with Braver Angels. But we're still Americans, and whatever that means to people these days, I don't believe in just sitting back and being an armchair quarterback. I think that I have to be the example. And if anything, during that school board run, when the opinions about things came out, I know that I got a lot of sandpaper effect. Just like you're talking about, and I know what that's about. But as you know, you can't let that drive.
Right.
That can't be the fundamental basis of everything that you do. And the other part about it is that I think that this is something we can't forget about. I think we say a lot. We see around Eugene. I see these signs about practice kindness. I see that all over Eugene. And, if that's the case, then that doesn't matter whether you're red or blue. You should be willing to gather together and have a conversation where that you are not offending one another, and that you're going to listen with care and concern, and be the human being that we're supposed to be. I think we just can't give that up.
Mary, go ahead. You guys,
Yeah, I'd like to
tell
follow
you
on.
got something to say.
Yeah. Well, there's a few things. First of all, I just want to say that Grant really walks his talk. When he was running for the school board, he connected with his opponent. They met several times. They played golf together, and they continued to meet after the election, after she won the election. So, I mean, he's reached out and actually met and talked and done things, and they agreed to treat each other respectfully, which is one of the core. And it's hard to do sometimes when someone says something that you feel is not good, not to be offended. We ourselves are working really hard, as Grant said, practicing amongst ourselves, this core group of 10 people that's organizing everything for this alliance, because it's not easy, and we fall down, and we're not perfect all the time. I have personally lost friends since I joined Braver Angels, and have just spoken up about, come to this event. I have personally lost friends, and it's a struggle for me as to how to work with that from going forward. But I also want to go back to the name Braver Angels, because the name of our organization was originally not Braver Angels, it was Better Angels. And it comes from better angels of our nature. That the quote of Abraham Lincoln's quote, the better angels of our nature, that we need to we need to go back and pull through the better angels of our nature and be who we are truly meant to be. Now, the name changed because it was another nonprofit that had that name. And eventually, as Braver Angels got much bigger, we had to change our name to Braver Angels. But that's how we started off, as Better Angels.
Do you think we've become a people that is too easily offended?
Yeah, I do.
Definitely.
We take offense at things, all of us, when somebody says something not when you're talking this. I think the key to this whole thing, to me, is relationship. If you build a relationship with someone, then and I'm going to give you a personal story that people will react to, and I know she wouldn't care, because I've said this publicly before, but Kitty Piercy and me, very much on different ends of the spectrum when it comes to our political beliefs and stuff. But when I was doing some video production after I lost the race, well, let me go back. When I was in the race for Secretary of State, I remember going to the Eugene celebration, and we were walking around campaigning, and she had a little booth. And I remember walking up to her, and she looked over at me and she goes, "Come here." And I walked over, and she goes, "How you doing?" And I said, "This is really hard." And she goes, "I know. Just keep your head up and keep going." And that meant the world to me, because I'm sure she didn't vote for me. Well, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure she didn't vote for me. But that connected something. And then it was like, then we started doing work, and I did a lot of work with people with different abilities. We used to call that disabilities, but then I've changed that personally myself, in my own vocabulary. And she did some things for us, and we found something in common. And just the other day, I wrote something on a blog, and all these people were attacking me. It was like something she said, and they're attacking me. And she goes, "Rick and I don't agree on everything, but he has a good heart and he means well." And it's one of those things where I think, that what you're doing, that I have, and I don't have that with a lot of people. And I think that's just somebody we've found a way to respect something about each other, and then moving on. And I love your idea, because I think we could do that. I guess the hard part, if I'm going to be really honest with you, like for me I was always a non-affiliated voter, and I only became a Republican so I could run for office, because I wasn't going to be a Democrat. There was no way I could run against Kate Brown and do anything. I mean, she won the primary. I waited till there was no one else in the primary. They were all afraid, and I jumped in. So it's like I wasn't a diehard, but it's like, as somebody with a more conservative kind of look on life, I felt like I had to swallow my tongue and so much that when I finally at COVID stopped swallowing I said, I'm done, and just started saying what I thought. And then people said, I always thought you were different than that. I respected you. Now I don't. And it was this really weird, it was this thing. Wow, you didn't really know me, did you? So once you knew me, or what my belief is, it was over. And I think that's a hard one. And Mary, you'd be the mediator person that would, I'm sure you can sit here and diagnose what I'm doing here. But it's like, that was the hard part for me, is going, I can't go back to being silent, and I have a voice and I'm going to use it. But I do want to use it kindly, and but at the same time, I don't want to be silenced by anything. You know what I mean? Because I've lived that way. I lived that way for 30 years. It's very frustrating, I think, for people that come. That's why you see people going from blue states to red states, from red states to blue states, from purple to purple. We're all trying to find our people, because when you don't live around people that see things similar to you, it's really tough.
Yep.
Also, Rick, I think another thing that's very prevalent here is that, like you had mentioned about this, such an emotional time. Everybody's bringing their emotion. And one thing I appreciate about Braver Angels is that they are emphasizing that when we come to a conversation, that we're not just bringing our emotions. We're not just bringing what we see in social media. We're really needing to bring some substance and bring that to the conversation, because we're so overloaded. We're just jam-packed with everything that we're watching and listening to, and we're needing to realize and admit that we are influenced by all these things.
Right. Do you think that if we don't, I feel like why I really wanted to have you guys on here, because I think you're onto something. Because my thought is, and I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but if we don't do this, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Either way, whether Harris or Trump wins, it could be a really ugly day. And if we don't develop an attitude of not, haha, I won, or, this proves my candidate was better, instead, how do we go back? And I don't think it's not the nationals. The three of us and anyone else watching, we can't change the national picture, but we can change our neighborhood.
Yeah.
We can change small groups of people. And if all of a sudden people are going out and saying, maybe you shouldn't talk about them that way, and we might want to find out more what they think. And you know what I mean? I think, but I do think you're on. I think you are brave, and I think Better Angels is not a great name. I think Braver Angels is a really good name, because you're not better. You're trying to make us all just open the door to conversation, and that's really what we need right now.
In a respectful way, yes, in a respectful way. May I just share something following on?
Please. That's why we're here. Yes.
Okay. So, one of the events that we have in October, so September event is going to be based on skills for disagreeing better. So that's a workshop, a skill building workshop.
For disagreeing better?
For disagreeing better. Yeah. Skills.
I love that.
Okay. Used to be skills for bridging the divide. Now it's called skills for disagreeing better. That's a standard Braver Angels workshop. In October, we're bringing in somebody who actually happens to be a mediator colleague of mine, But he's also very into being mindful. And we're aware that a lot of people are going to have a lot of anxiety in October around the election. So that workshop is going to be on election anxiety, how to use mindfulness tools to stay grounded. And so that's what we're doing in October. And after the elections in November, we are planning, we don't have it all put together yet, but we are planning a community event where conservatives and progressives can come together, and others, anyone, come together for a half day or a day on a community project and working alongside of each other.
Good idea.
No politics talking, but talk about yourself and what you do and your family and your hobbies and all of that, but no talking politics. That's the idea that we're trying to launch for a couple of weeks after the election.
That's a great idea, Mary, because that, like I remember seeing when I think Habitat for Humanity does such a great job like that. When they I used to, they were a client of mine. I did videos for them, but you'd see people come to these houses to build the house. It was about building the house and the family that was going to live in it. And they're all paying attention and working with them. And I'd see these people because I knew I was there. I'd see liberals and progressives and conservatives and, anybody else in between, all there working on this thing. And nobody was sitting there looking, going, and that kind of thing. And because when you have, well, maybe that's that old thing, idle hands. You know what I mean? When we're working together, like physically doing something together, here in Montana, there's a Butte is a community they call it Butte America because they are really an immigrant. I mean, this is Irish, Chinese. I mean, anybody. They were all here back in the day, and they say this has kind of continued throughout history. Is you had to get along because when you're in a mine, you don't care if the guy next to you is Chinese or Italian. If something goes wrong, you need them to help save your life. And so everybody got along better. Because you needed each other. And that's kind of what you're doing with this is if you have a project and we're all working because there's this one family who needs this home, which Habitat for Humanity does, then it's not about who you think is the best president or vice presidential nomination. It becomes about Bill and June and their kids and what you're doing for them. And maybe we've become, because of social media and all this stuff, we become so self-centered. And I don't mean as much selfish, but self-centered on what we think rather than putting that. I always do better when I'm getting depressed or having a bad day or something. When I focus on other people, it always seems to go away because I figured out I'm the problem.
Yeah, I think that I think we have to do a lot of looking at ourselves and how we are contributing to the polarization. How are we thinking about the other people, the others? How are we labeling them? What is the language we're using? Because we can use, there's really a lot of extremist language that's going on. What I call highly negatively charged words when we label other people on the other side.
Right.
And it's not helpful. It's not bringing us together. It's pushing us further apart.
Right.
But we have to look at ourselves because I think we do that as well. We label the other side.
Yeah, as you say that, I'm going, yeah, even when we call people, I don't know, even when we call people liberal and conservative, those are charged words anymore. I mean, it's like saying, I hope we've gotten past I have a black friend or I have a gay friend. I mean, I have a friend. So, but we still do that. I mean, I think people still do that, but I try not to, but it's like, why is it like now they're my conservative friend. This is my liberal friend. This is my sort of liberal friend. And this is my sort of progressive friend. And those are all labels that I do. And we, if we can get rid of that and
when you get to know somebody, when you really get to know them and you having conversations with them over a period of time, I'm not just talking about one, but over a period of time, you forget, that they're black or or that they're gay or whatever. It just, you forget it. And then something happens, oh yeah, that's right. But I'd forgotten because I know them as a person. I
Right.
know who they are.
So
I know
how do you expand this to get people on a broad, because I know you're doing small groups and working on that, and stuff like this helps because it gets the word out that people are doing this. But how do you keep this from becoming, you know, and I'm just being real about what this, another Eugene City Club where a whole group of people come and they're all at the same ideas and stuff, and they say, well, we have some mixed people in here. No, from becoming just another group that's self-gratifying itself and blah 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 blah.
Well, there's a couple of things that I will add in here is that first, again, the structure of Braver Angel. Some of these events have to be balanced. Supposedly, you're supposed to have so many or a balance of reds and blues in order to carry it out. So there's that part. But I think we're always mindful of the group that's coming together. And I think it's always on the reach out. And beyond this, just beyond our area, there are other chapters, not many in Oregon, but it is growing. I have to pat us on the back a little bit. We've been recognized for really a great deal of lurching forward and staying with it. And in fact, we've got some tentacles into the legislature as well. And so there's some things happening upcoming. There's the ranked choice voting is a big deal that's coming up for us Oregonians here in November to be voting on, and very few people really know what it is or how it's going to affect us. So we have some legislators coming into this conversation, and we're supposed to have a national event that anybody could chime into and get into. It hasn't got a date to it yet, but that's going to be all about this ranked choice voting, which even in liberal states like California, where that they've attempted to use it and they've thrown it out the door. Now that's my side of it. There's others in the conversation who say here in Oregon, well, let's just give it a try. So I think we need to get some education, and that's where Braver Angels is stepping out into what the realities that we're facing here today are.
How do you keep it from becoming? Well, I guess that's because you have to. Your guidelines. You're both going, what is he even talking about? He's not finishing his sentence. What happens a lot is it's I'm right, you think you're right, I'm right, and we push until we convince. It's always, I always used to feel like I was being, I have to, I keep getting questioned and hammered because I need to come around and believe what the other person believes. And is that why you have 3 reds, 3 blues, 3 purples, so that everybody kind of has this, it keeps everybody honest?
It's a requirement of Braver Angels that at the leadership level, you have a balance of red and blue. The purples are not required, but of red and blue, you must have a balance. So any alliance or chapter that starts up has to have a red co-chair and a blue co-chair. That's a requirement on the leadership level. Now, we can't mandate it on whoever shows up at our events. And that is a challenge for us because we have in this area more blues than reds showing up. And we have been accused of being blue oriented. And we're really working really hard not to be that. And Grant's done a great job of reaching out to fellow Republicans or other people who think conservatively, about that. So that is something, a concern. But the one thing I wanted to say is we try at the beginning of every event. I mean, they're usually about 2 hours long, except for some workshops are a bit longer. And we try to say for a political dialogue meeting, gathering, these are the principles. You come here to listen, to better understand, not to change anybody else's mind.
Yeah.
Your job here is to learn why people think the way they do. So come from questions of curiosity. So someone says something to you and you want to go into yes, but.
Yeah.
You know, it's a natural inclination. Yes, but, you know, uh, instead of doing that, hold back and say, tell me more about that. Help me to better understand why, how you came to think that way. So come from questions of curiosity is a key thing. And by God, it's hard to do.
Yeah. So Grant, yeah, Grant, I'm curious with you, like, what have you learned about yourself by being a part of this group?
Well, I think it's more of an emphasis of what I knew about myself. I've been a very opinionated man. I grew up, with an opinionated family, and I have learned about myself also that patience and compassion for people is something that is not easily practiced. And I've seen in myself these kind of weaknesses, and really the mindfulness for myself of how that I'm projecting myself when I'm sitting across the table from somebody. Uh, I'm constantly saying I'm a work in progress.
Are you finding that your opinions have kept you from some very interesting relationships?
In the past, yes, but not now.
Right.
I've seen it broken through the bubble, and even other people in our group really have seen some amazing things happen with folks that we do get in that bubble, and it's hard to break out. But you kind of become this support group for one another. That when somebody has that realization they've been stuck, well, then you're kind of loved through that, and that's a great practice for us all. And I would say, I'm mindful that I have to be uh, watching myself and listening to myself. And I've been using the word posture a lot lately. I have to watch my posture.
Mary, what's your hope?
My hope is that we can do a little, one by one, have other people work towards reaching out to people who think differently than they do and form a relationship, get to know them as people. And if you want to have a political conversation with them, then listen from a foundation of curiosity. You do not have to share your own opinion unless you're asked for it. And to do it with kindness, as Grant said, words of kindness and words of respect. We've got to get back there. That's my hope, that we can make a little bit of a difference here in the Springfield, Eugene area.
And don't you guys think that, well, what's kind of interesting about it too is that, I mean, Eugene Springfield is a pretty hard nut to crack. And if you can do it there, like the New York song says, you can do it anywhere. I mean, because it is so politically, politics in Eugene Springfield, even more, I think, than Oregon, is almost, it's a hobby, you know? And so a lot of us, Grant, me, other people, Mary, probably, it's that's part of the interest of the community that way. And so to take that and go, okay, I can still have my beliefs and my opinions, but I need to be expanding my humanity so that I'm not letting those get in the way. Because I think I feel like we just all need to work together more to get, because we're not going up. It feels like we're going like this, the spiral, and you guys are like this thing going, hey, if we can just keep it going like this and not going any lower, and then if we could keep it like this, maybe then we up just a little bit and then we go like that. You know what I mean? It's a process. And I guess my question would be to you too, is how do you get, especially in Eugene Springfield, and I could be wrong, you guys can correct me if you want, but my thought is it's much easier to get blue people to be involved, and you were kind of alluding to this earlier. How do you get other reds and people like that to go, you know what, I need to do this? Because I think the temptation is just to go, well, I'm done. No, I don't care, and I don't have time for this. But there's a foundational crack in Lane County. Let's just broaden it. In Lane County's foundation, there's a crack. And we keep building on top of that crack, and the foundation it's just getting worse and more wobbly, and it's not going to hold up the floor. And we're building, all these cool things are happening. You guys got great parks, and you're getting some beautiful new businesses and restaurants and things like that. But if that basis for that foundation doesn't bring people together a little bit, it's going to falter.
Well, before Braver Angels came along here to Lane County, I'd say that probably is a very good depiction. But even if you have a handful of people together that are practicing these things, then that's a victory. Right. I think that it just has to go on, and we have to be patient as well as persevere, because you believe that you're making a difference. It's just as simple as that. Not to change policy, but to bring people together. That's where we're at. This is what we're doing.
And it sounds like what you guys talk about, it's not about changing everybody else. It's about changing you.
Very true. Very true.
I have to tell you, you've inspired me. I like the concept and the whole idea. And you're making me have to think about some stuff, which is
maybe you can start a chapter out there in Montana, Rick.
Yeah, you never know. Then my difficulty would be finding the blues. We could commiserate over, I'm trying to find some Democrats to bring into the group.
Rick, one of the workshops that or two of the workshops that Braver Angels runs from time to time one is called Being Red in a Blue Environment, and the other one's called Being Blue in a Red Environment. And they're also available online, so you don't have to wait for something to come to your area. So.
Yeah, it'd be fun to jump in on one of those. Okay, so that's a good place to end. How do people, if they kind of got the bug and got some ideas that they want to, feel like they need to be a part of this process or be part of the change, how do they get a hold of you? What's give all that little information out there so people can kind of put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah. Well, if you want to know about Braver Angels National, go onto the national website. It's very easy, braverangels.org. As I said, national nonprofit. If you want to learn more about us, you could email us directly. Off the top of my head, our website is a little long, so Grant, you might be able to put it in the chat or something. But Mary@braverangels.org is my Braver Angels email, and Grant's is grantj@braverangels.org. So okay. He has Grant J.
And then you guys can set them up and get them to the website and all the information they need and how to, because you can do this online, and then you have group meetings that are in person as well.
Yes, we have in person.
Well, if they go to the braverangels.org, they're able to locate us through that because they show where the local chapters are.
Okay.
And the other thing, if you're talking to people in other parts of Oregon, there's also braverangels.org/Oregon. And then you'll get to the Oregon Braver Angels workshop, website, whereby you'll be able to find other alliances in Oregon, including ours.
How many? Do you know off the top of your head how many there are in Oregon?
Off the top of my head, you're talking to the wrong person. Well,
I mean, a dozen.
Well, you're talking about alliances? Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There are different levels of development. I would say about 8 alliances in Oregon. There's, they're starting one in Grants Pass, Medford, Ashland area. And they've got something going in Portland and in Yamhill and other places as well. So actually we're having a meeting tonight. We're having once a month, we come together, all the chairs, to have a meeting. So
That has to be really fulfilling and exciting, I think. That one, that you're part of this, but two, that there are, even if it's a handful, 100 or 150 people or something in Oregon, that they're starting to go, we can't keep doing this. We've got to have more than dialogue. What you guys are really preaching is we got to have relationship,
Right.
Right.
And there's a group of two people that are going all around. There are the Oregon Alliance, which is going around areas of Oregon where we don't have alliances and doing a few workshops and helping people better understand what Braver Angels is all about.
Well, Mary Miller, Grant Johnson, thank you for being here. I'm serious. I'm not just being full of BS. I'm gonna rethink some stuff. I gotta figure out what I'm doing here. And
we're going to be sending you some information as well, Rick, along the path here to keep you updated.
Okay, stay on here. I'm going to close out, and Mary, I'll get you one more thing. And then stay here on here for just a second. I have to close it out, and then I want to tell you when this is going to air and that kind of thing.
Okay. I just want to put in a plug for our other co-chair who could not be here today, our blue co-chair, Luke Grossmiller. And so just want to let you all know that he's a driving force behind us as well.
Okay. All right. Both of you, thank you. Also, as a former member of that community, thank you for doing what you're doing, because I really do think you're onto something. I mean, I like it a lot. I think it's really cool. And I hope people don't judge it.
We appreciate you on here with you as well, Rick. Thank you.
This is the stuff that I love, because I hope, like myself, I hope it touches something as somebody that just says, I don't know what this means, but I want to make a change, and I got to figure this out, because the realization that, we're all part of the problem, and we get to choose to be part of the solution. So how we do that, I think we have to figure out. You guys, thank you both. I appreciate you being here.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rick. Yeah, much appreciated.
Okay, so now a little closer. So yeah, I'm that's why I call it Get Real. I think I may be part of the problem rather than part of the solution. So I need to I gotta think about that one and how I'm going to do things a little differently. So that is a good day. You know what? If you are not a person that likes to be corrected, you're missing out. Oh God, I've spent my life this way. But you know what it was for me, honestly? It was telling you the story of Kitty Piercy and me, because we are an unlikely alliance, and we can get right in each other's face with our ideas. But when it comes to the end, what I loved about this recent interaction and stuff is it was on her page, and she was still going, but Rick has, good heart. He's trying to, but we disagree on stuff. And I think there's a lot of that out there where, you find the thing that you have in common, and then you focus in on that. And so if you're somebody who's, struggling with that, this sounds like a group that could help you learn some really good skills that would help you, not just in the political realm, who cares, but in your life, in your work. I mean, think about the skills they're talking about, and to be able to use that. If you learn that with a group of people that you disagree with, just think what you can do in a job setting or with your family. Families, that's the most dysfunctional thing I can even think of. I could use a lot of help in that area. So anyway, thanks you guys for being here. Share this on your page so other people see it. And I always tell you that, Jewish culture is action, where everything's action. If you love, you can't love without action. You have to do something. You can't be part of a community if you don't do anything. You can't say I'm part of this if you're not doing something. So take some action. Don't sit here and look at it and go, that's really cool, and then walk away. If it touches your soul, then you better do something, because it's just going to come around again to bite you. Good night.